What's up, Gaming Wars? Chief Rocky here with the second segment of the conversation discussing the purpose of the size class system. In this segment, Valeth will be joining us, so it'll be Valeth, Nastral, Notmadhatten, XCaliber, and myself. Well, welcome,
Hello.
Valeth.
Hi.
You're like at the last question, by the way.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I said something about it earlier, and then I kind of forgot about it because nobody answered me right away.
All right, so I think we're all in agreement. And I just want to point out one thing about what I said about tying this to weight and generators, right? It's going to be a little bit more intuitive than the size class what they have now. Okay, so and why I say that is, if you make a ship that's light, it doesn't have to be out of combat steel, right? And it could serve the purpose of whatever you need it for, and you could use the small stuff, and you could use the small generator, and you could just build your way up. And you get to this ship, and it's only made out of steel, not even hardened steel, just steel, and you have small thrusters on there, and then you try to make like a tier 2 generator, tier 2 large generator. You try to put it on there, and the game says you can't. The ship cannot handle the weight. The actual structure of the ship is not thick enough to support the generator. Then you finally make it big enough, you put the generator on there, you fire it up, and then it fires up. You try to turn on the thrusters. Of course, anybody knowing that when you start something up, you get what's called lock rotor amperage, right? That's about 180% of its normal draw in about the first couple seconds, and then your ship dies because you don't have enough power, or you know what I mean? Like you put too big generators on, or too many big thrusters on there, and now your one generator just can't handle it. It would be a little bit more intuitive because the game would tell you, like, this isn't working, this is what happened because your power died, or you can't put this on there because it's not big enough, the actual structure won't work. Right now is what you said. XCOW is a perfect example. It is Legos in a game, and I get that, right? I got that. But when it comes to PvP, Legos in game, you can't just build a pony and throw some guns on it and expect it to do well. Agreed, Nastral?
Oh, of course, yeah. It makes perfect sense.
And that's what makes this game special, is that you can't just do that. But then it also it needs to give you the creative ability to outshine, but it also needs to give you the tools to make sense of it in a mainstream way.
The most direct way to address that, though, is not even really to change a whole lot of fundamental aspects of the game. It's just to optimize a lot of those decorative elements that are also very burdensome to server and client, like lights and all those little bits. When you try to like do a lot of greebling on your ship, that'll also really bloat the class size, things like that. That would be the main thing. Like the whole measurement of the burden on the server kind of thing is perfectly fine. But what needs to be done is there needs to be less, especially for people who do want to build pretty things. There needs to be significantly less punishment for building pretty things, and
Yes.
So I can speak to that, and I understand, because one of the things that really drove me to this game was the fact that it seemed that it would be a lot easier to be able to adapt to this than Space Engineers, only because having a functional but yet aesthetically pleasing warship is what I wanted. I'm an empire builder, right? When I play this game, I want to bring people together. I want to unite them. I want to have uniformity and effectiveness in one. But when it comes to PvP in this game, you can't do that. If you build pretty, it causes lag, disdainment to other players, and performance on your part.
There are certain people that adapt to it better than others, and kind of embrace an aesthetic that's a good compromise, and it works out pretty well.
Oh yeah, Nastral and Valeth, you guys have probably some of the best, most effective workshop ships out there. And every time I go to a PvP area, I'm either seeing Lycor or I'm seeing the princess everywhere. So you guys have efficiently done it that way, but would it not be great to see like a destroyer with corridors and rooms, but yet still have its effectiveness?
Yeah, let me say something here. I would love to see a fully functional like RP style destroyer. I would love it. The reason the Princess and probably Nastral ships are built the way they are is because that's what works and that's what's like effective and allowed by the game's mechanics. I would love to see a ship where you could build a full interior without being punished for it. I think that the mechanic they have now of designing by class size is awful, and I think that what they can do to combat that, and I may get some flack for this because I think amongst the PvPers I'm probably one of the few people who believes this. I think they should make certain things forced interior, like not accessible by the P menu forced interior. Like if you want to use a constructor, you should have to be able to manually access it instead of just hit P and get to it.
I love it. I agree with you 100%. Keep going. Sorry.
I get yelled at. I think most things should be forcibly manually accessed, and I think that would go a long way towards opening up the game for more RP interior styles, because PvP ships like to do things like bury all their shit and hide it, which I don't fault anyone for doing, and I've done myself, but I don't think you should have to. I think you should be able to make your ship somewhat RP interior without being punished for it. And right now, you can make a ship with an RP interior without it being weak, but it will be bloated class size. So if you make it to where you have to place things openly, the class size bloat will be generally accepted and will be less frowned upon in the PvP community, and you will be allowed to make prettier ships in general, just from that one change.
Agreed. XCal?
And it could. Aaron, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm done. That's all I got. I don't know. There's a lot of things I agree with the RP community on that they don't know that I agree with them on, because we fight a lot about stupid shit because, you know, we have differences of opinion. But I actually think that a lot of RP asset stuff should be the way the game works. But since it's not, I'm a practical person, so I don't use it since it doesn't work well. But I wish it did.
Yeah, XCal, I'd like your thoughts on that real quick.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, especially like space games, right? I think the RP element is what generally brings people to play the games initially. So yeah, I would love to see a balance in that without it affecting the ability. Because yeah, I mean, using anything that's not, hard PvP built, you just get. It's not a fun experience in PvP. So I think I've had one experience in PvP, one battle. It was me and a tank versus 2 SVs, and it was literally the only thing I ever did in PvP that didn't lag. I mean, the last time I did 4 SVs in a space battle, and after I thought I was done, I got out of my vessel, and then I watched the entire thing happen for the next 15 minutes. Until it caught up, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I mean, that's literally been my only experiences. I don't know if it's the servers, if it was my older system, but yeah, so it would be great to actually have playable PvP, but still be able to make stuff that is somewhat,
aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, just yeah. I mean, I totally get it. I get it. And, of course, when you're playing, the same way I play PvP in other games, it's like I'm always going to want the advantage. I'm always going to look for, how to go at you sideways, how to do, whatever needs to be done to win. So I totally understand that mentality. But as a designer, it's not, the challenge is cool, but I don't, I want to build stuff that, yeah, it looks like sci-fi stuff somewhat, right? And, so it's, yeah, I get it. I mean, I do like to build as efficient as I can based on stuff, but I don't know enough about PvP to try to build for PvP, I guess. And I tried a while back and it didn't go so well, and but I learned a lot from it. and I learned a lot of things. I got a lot of feedback and stuff. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say about it.
Notmadhatten, and then Nastral. I know you want to close it out. Notmadhatten.
I don't really have anything to
add. All right, Nastral.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, because been bouncing everywhere on this. Yeah, I think it's the main thing is it's the is right now multiplayer is not that well optimized, and right now there's very few tools that communities have at their disposal to effectively keep things regulated properly, though there is actually far better tools that I've ever seen compared to other games. And a lot of the times I think a lot of these communities are very slow on the uptake, and they're not really adapting very well right now. So I mean, as it is, what people don't realize, it is 100% possible to have a really smooth as fuck server and have it play, maybe not like a console game or something, but at least it'll be close enough to where it'll be like really functional, more functional than any of us have ever experienced. But it doesn't happen because of the state of the game and the expectations of the community, of the multiplayer community at large, PvE and PvP.
Agreed. All right, so I think we all agree that the size class limit system is a great idea. I think right now it's not hitting the mark. I think it's decisive because it's actually a register of how many devices is on the vessel and how much lag it's going to cause the server. I think we all kind of agree that there are some downsides to it, but it is a good concept, and I think we all kind of agree tying it to something else, i.e. weight, power, or one of the two, would be a much more effective way to do it, that would be more intuitive and letting the players know how you could do this, and allow us to not only have ships that are like frigate size, because you could only put so many turrets on here because of the weight and the power limitations, blah blah blah, this and that, and it would still have an aesthetically pleasing, functional, capable ship. I think something like that could work. Elion, I'm only getting us together. It's not to crap on your game. We love your game. We would like to see it kind of go more towards the PvP players. I only say this because we would all love to have the RP aspect to it as well. Have this great armada face off against another great armada, but they all look great and not just unpainted sticks with a cockpit and a couple of guns on it. That's not what we want, but that's kind of what we're resorted to. So that's all it is us just trying to say, hey, don't forget about the multiplayer people. Like, we really want to be able to play this game the way you intended to, but it's just not there yet. Anybody else agree?
Yeah, and for God's sakes, do not think that communities can do this on their own and that they'll just come up with their own config. Some of them, or other things.
Again, going back to
provide them. You need to provide them with a rule set that makes sense and works within its own constraints. It's that simple. I don't need
to be fair to them, I know it's a small development team, and I know that Rexus is helping them with a lot of this back-ended config stuff, because HWS is a great server. All right, I played on it. It's fun, especially when it comes to the single-player stuff. But when you pull your blueprints over, that's really one of the things that kind of broke the straws back for O+S. Like, we had to redo all of our designs. We had to figure out what turrets work better, and it was kind of like we had to do this all over again. It's almost like we had to restart the game, and it sucked. The same thing with going from Wolves server to fighting you guys in Inflicted. I totally got my butt whooped. Like, I had to rethink the entire way I played the game because the server rules were different and how they administrate it. I do agree with you. Some more insight and more direction from Elion is kind of needed. But again, it's an alpha game, and we kind of knew this coming in. And that's one of the reasons why I want to give them positive feedback on what we think might help them.
Hire me. I'll do it for free. I have a lot of free time.
Just put your LinkedIn account right here.
I'll balance your game for you. Just hire me.
All right. Any closing remarks from anybody?
I missed the portion about class size talk versus weight. I just wanted to say that weight is a much better indicator than block size or whatnot if you actually care about power, because most blocks are itemized per a specific weight. So if you limit power vice weight instead of block size, or sorry, vice block size instead of weight, excuse me, you are gimping certain blocks based on their weight stat distribution. So weight is probably the best thing you can do for power size. Like, and it makes sense because in real life, most ships are weighted by their weight class. Like a 10,000 ton cruiser versus a 100,000 ton carrier, it's by weight. It's not by dimension, because a 10,000 ton cruiser and a 4,000 ton destroyer have the same length and width almost. Like they're both roughly 500 feet long and 250 or 200 between 80 and 200 feet wide. Like, think about that.
I know you're a Navy man because you just stated that, and you've told me before.
Yeah. But I mean, it's true. It's not just Navy, but it's true. Yes.
No, it is.
You can have two ships of the same length, but one weighs 5 times as much and is a much more dangerous ship in a one-on-one scenario. That's
Agreed.
Something to consider. So, especially in space where it's 4D, really, not even 3D. It's really 4D.
Agreed. But I'm going to go total nerd on you real quick, because anybody could go to any of the Star Wars fans stuff, the Star Trek, even Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, that's okay.
But hold on, they all classify their ships by weight.
No, I agree. That's what I was saying. Is weight. Weight is the kicker, man.
Well, like technically, it's not weight when you're not in gravity. It's mass.
Okay, you're obviously right. It is mass. No, that's true. We'll give him the nerd win. That's true.
I'm an engineer. Are we going to give him the semantics of weight and mass?
Let him have it, because he's right. In space, it's mass. But our point still holds. Classify by mass. Balance your blocks by mass, and you won't have to worry about block count or class size, because mass will be a limiting factor naturally. If thrust is on a curve where mass actually matters, then people won't be using gigantic, ridiculous ships, because they'll be thrust limited or mass limited, unless, of course, they're making them for space only, which is fair and is another specialization technique, right? So there's a lot of nuances to this you could incorporate into the game, but you have to really work on that, and that's not. I mean, that's not something I can really talk about what you plan on doing. Yeah. But I think mass is the best limiter, because most blocks are already weighted by mass. Class size is a fantastic tool for server admins, but it's an awful tool for players to balance their creations. So take it for what it is. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And then you can only put so much on there by size, mass, or power distribution. So I think we're all in agreement.
And then, of course, force interiors with actually useful blocks that can't be accessed otherwise. To me, that's the biggest thing. I like interiors. Most of my ships don't use very much interior, so people see like some kind of weird, controversy there, contradiction there. I like interiors. Most of my ships don't have much interior because they're not necessary, and they're, with the way that clipping and lag works in this game, they can actively work against you. I would rather interiors be important. Take that for what it is, as just one of the PvPers in this game. I think that we should have the option to make RP ships without gimping ourselves. The things that make good RP ships should be incentivized to make even the hardcore PvPers who say screw RP, I don't want to do any of that, still want to make ships that could potentially be like, oh yeah, no, I could live on this. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's all I got there.
It took me a long while to learn to use the P menu, because I wanted to go to that. I wanted to have that walk through my ship and just awe in its grandeur and splendor. But you can't do that in PvP.
Man, I agree with you. And sometimes I still agree with you. some things are actually easier to do without getting into the P menu. You know, like when you're actually playing the game and you're not trying to be all made up PvP and you're just playing and you're grinding and you're like, whatever, fuck, screw it, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna use my healers and I'm gonna use my constructor and I'm gonna play like I'm in the game. I love the immersion value there. I really do. People probably don't believe that if they've seen my ships, but I really like that. I don't think I've ever built a ship with a hidden constructor, even regardless of how stupidly made a PvP my reputation is. I've never done that because I like being able to walk into my ship and use my devices. And I know that's silly because for PvP that's kind of a negative, right? But we can change that. Like you can make a ship like Jay Randall or even XCaliber and who else? Spange makes. You can make their ships good, you know, and you don't have to worry about things like, oh, this is another thing I meant to get into. I'm sorry if I'm going over your time limit here, but
No, go ahead.
exploits. This is a big one for me, right? All right, I gotta.
We touched base on that already.
So, exploits and PvP. There are a lot of them. Contrary to popular belief, I don't like most of them. The ones that exist that are easy to use, I'll use them if they're generally accepted on servers. That's fine. I would prefer they not exist at all. I'd be happy with that. I think most of my faction and other related PvP factions who do well would be happy with that.
So
we
actually touched base on that and agreed.
Okay.
Exploits, but they're technically not because they're coded into the game. Exploit would actually be doing it if it wasn't coded. Well, I see.
Okay.
It depends on how you look at it.
I don't mean to. No. I agree with you. We don't even need to go into that. I buy your opinion. I agree with that. I won't go into my definition of exploit versus, abuse of mechanics and whatever. I got you. I'm totally on board. But what I'm saying, I guess, the spirit of what I'm saying is, I think that if things like that people call exploits didn't exist, I'd be okay with it.
Agreed.
Now that being said, I have to point out one thing that I've run into many times over and over again. And I know people probably don't like to get into specifics in chats like this, when you're going over generalizations of the game or what you think could be changed or whatnot, calling them exploits because they don't understand them.
Totally.
No, I would like better information on and I know I understand development process and I understand hourly limits and wages and I get that. I'm no pro. I'm not trying to say I'm on your level, but I'm an amateur game dev and I've made like 10 or 20 Android games that are garbage. All right, I understand how it works. So like, could you maybe get either some classification understanding of the objects in your game or properly tooltip describe them, because I know it sounds silly, but it's a big sticking point for newer PvPers or even PvEers who are considering PvP who use a little logic, in their thought process. So like if you just put a little bit of thought into the description of your objects, less players will be concerned about what's considered exploitative. And there will always be people who complain, and that's okay, and that happens. But people will be more in line with what's considered in the nature of the game. For example, the big one is turret decoys. Everybody complains about that. But like, you ripped off a game that has decoy blocks that do the exact same thing as turret decoys. So I can't in good conscience see that as being an exploit because you knew. Like, everybody knew.
We need decoy blocks. I mean, we need to demystify PvP and make it a real part of the game. As
radars, sensors.
I agree with that. I use decoys,
jammers.
But I agree. What I really think should happen is I think that turret AI should be more properly described, because people are using it as a cheese, which is fine. I get that. I understand. I also understand proper exploration of game mechanics. Like, I like space games where there's block building and exploration and understanding of how things work. I like that because it's a learning curve, just like when you load up Call of Duty and start shooting people. There's a learning curve on how to shoot people, right? It's the same thing. But I think proper documentation would let more people get into it without getting as frustrated. And that's all that I ask. And I may be a little more lenient than most of the PvEers who want a PvP. Maybe XCaliber or Spange or Jay Randall have something to say more. But I think that you should just properly label the blocks and explain how turret or how AI in general works. And that would be good enough to allow the average player to go, oh, well, this would be logical and this wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's good enough, but at least there's a compromise there. Like, I don't think you should be using decoys with no explanation whatsoever. I think they should sort of kind of explain what's going on.
There needs to be a bigger population in PvP. I mean,
I agree with that too.
And it's frustrating because it's, there's not, so Elion's not worried about it. But if the only way to get one is to educate people to actually attempt PvP, and so it's hard. It's I don't know.
I'll buy that.
I'm not optimistic.
I think part of the problem there is that Elion has taken polls, and that the majority of their polls are PvE inclined.
Yes.
But I think those are very short-sighted polls, because get this. Let's do a little bit of logical rationale. Sorry. So what I would like to propose as just an informational tooltip is most open world games. There's two main like viable options here. Most open world games are either single player or they are PvP enabled. And the few who are PvE only and multiplayer are games like this, which are very niche, whatever you want to say. And your polls may be extremely skewed towards your existing audience. When you're looking at potential audience, you need to look at other games that are sort of overlapping genres with you, and almost all of them are PvE inclined or PvP inclined games, which include players who want to kill each other. And those players don't play your game because PvP sucks. And the players who only play your game, who avoid those games, vote on your polls in a biased manner because they don't like PvP. So, yes, PvE skews your polls very harshly, but if you're looking at potential audience instead of current audience, you need to also look at survival and open world PvP players. And while it may sound biased coming from a guy who's very well known as a big PvP meanie butt or whatever, it's sort of important to understand that if you want to grow your game, you need to be looking at those options, regardless of the fact that your current audience is mostly single player.
It's insane, right? Like, it's this whole market that they could tap into if they just did a couple things, and they're ignoring it. It makes no sense.
Thank you. I'm well aware that your current audience is majority single player and the multiplayers are at least 70% PvE. I understand that. I have no argument against that. I have no smart comments, no snide remarks. I just say that if you'd like to grow the game and you'd like to grow your community, you may look at the potential for multiplayer people and what their interests lie in, and you may be a little surprised at where your polls skew if you were to take into account those factors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed. And to be honest with you, I fit that narrative you just said, Valeth. When I came and played on an actual no crap server, Inflicted, when I first met you guys, got my ass handed to me, right? And you know what? But it was frustrating. It was frustrating. It was very frustrating because I wanted the ornate ships that I was used to having in the Wolf server, right? I wanted to have that. And it was very frustrating for me to say, how do I become effective in PvP but still have a ship that looks good, looks mean, but still looks good. It has functional interior and looks good. And the truth was I had to get rid of it. There are a lot of people that get frustrated with that because there isn't. I had to come to you guys and ask you guys, what am I doing wrong? And I learned from you guys the proper way to PvP. And you have to give up a lot of that stuff you want to do in PvE. And a lot of players don't want to do that. They don't want to go into the back door. Because it literally is a back door of knowledge.
You're right. They may never. The problem, though, it's a twofold issue. And I know I've just cut you off. But to expound upon what you just said, it's not just that you need to compromise on what you want in your ship. You need to doubly compromise, because you don't just need to give up on some of your interior, which, by the way, I don't mean to naysay interiors for those of you who have RP PvP ships. You can actually build a fully functional interior and a fantastic PvP ship and it'll work fine. I don't want to be the guy who's on record saying that won't work, because it will. The problem is you are class size bloating and you're causing lag to the server. You actually can build a full RP ship that does PvP just fine. The problem is it's about 3 times laggier than building a full PvP ship that does the same thing. That's the issue. You know what I mean? But most people never get to that point because they don't understand where they're going wrong or what's happening because of lack of information. They don't really get why what they're doing isn't working. You know what I mean?
Agreed. All right, so we're going to have to cut this off. We're going at an hour now. We have to make this a 2-part.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. A reason why, again, I wanted you guys here was one, 4 out of 5 of us have naval experience, so we understand classification systems and why they're there.
Real ships?
Yes, real ships. But again, if it works in the real world, that's why all these other fantasy places, they use the same model because it's known to work, and it's going to work. It's going to work. And I think something like that needs to be adopted. The second reason is XPA, you guys have found the niche to own PvP. And you know that we're doing things intentionally that's allowed in the game that not a lot of people know of. And we would like to see it change. And you guys even admit that you would wish to be able to have a bigger ornate ship.
Absolutely.
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely. Just real quick to clear things up, to make damn sure everyone understands what I'm saying. Hi, I'm Valeth of XPA. I make all sorts of PvP meta ships. I would love it if RP ships were more viable, and if we were allowed to have more interior and more design options with better classification systems to our ships than class size currently offers.
Thank you. And XCal, I had you here because you are a very popular Twitch YouTuber and designer for Empyrion, and you know the same as I know. It is very hard to make that jump to PvP because it's not an intuitive thing. It is not a transition. It's not an easy transition.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not even attractive, because you get on and there's a few people that actually want to do it. There's a few people that are willing to play real, all out PvP. Everybody else just kind of wants to meet on a battlefield and march towards each other.
Yeah.
So it's not, it needs to change.
All right.
So
thank you. And again, I appreciate your guys' input on this. Again, Alien, I'm not coming at you guys to start a fire, all right? I am just coming as a multiplayer individual who loves PvP in this space genre. I want to see one of these games actually do what we just said, and I would love it to be Empyrion. And I'm wondering if you can make it happen with the input we provided. If not, I got it. Understood. I'm not hating on it, and I'm still going to play your game. But I would really love if you guys took this into account. That's all I got. Any guys have any last words, final words?
In a more polite way of what I was saying before, as far as balancing the configs, the vanilla configs shipped with the game, for God's sakes, Elion, take leadership with that. Make a good vanilla. And
make
push
flag
it out
red
with your
again.
game.
Cool. All right, so Elion,
I love you. Good luck.
Yeah.
2020 make flag grid.
No, game development's hard. I love you. Good luck.
Yeah, no, it is hard, and we know that. So at least have a roadmap and with multiplayer in a vision scope, and I'm willing to accept that. That's all. So that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed. This will be on YouTube. I did not stream this on Twitch as the original plan was, so I hope you guys enjoyed. That's all I got. Chief Rocky out.